This episode will be the start of Project Smoky. Today I will be installing a 2-inch body lift, and I will be washing the undercarriage of the truck just to get most of the dirt and grime off the bottom of it so that I don't wind up wearing a good chunk of it. Here I have the truck washed off as best as I could. I will be installing the body lift on my driveway here. A hoist is not needed, but if you have one it would be great, but I don't have that option. Here are all the components that I'll be using today on the 2-inch body lift that I will be installing on Old Smoky. I've tried to anticipate all the hardware that is needed, but you never know when additional hardware will be needed. A good friend of mine, Ed Undra, has supplied me with these nylon spacers. They are 4 inches in diameter and 2 inches in height. I have drilled a 1/2-inch hole through the center to install them, and I've cut to length also these 2x3 square tubing that I've cut to 3 inches in length, and it is a 1/4 inch wall and a 1/2-inch hole through the center. I painted them with a rust check. Not sure if this is the best item to use for this, but that is what was available to me, so I used it. The longest bolts that I'm using will be 6.5 inches in length with 12mm thread, and I have 8 pieces of them. The next bolt, again 8 pieces that are 3.5 inches in length, 12mm as well, 1/2-inch lock washers and 12mm nuts with 1/2-inch washers. The impact that I normally use, or I always use, is a 1/2-inch IR impact. I've been in maintenance for several years and we've had to work with many impacts, and these are about $200 and they will compete or exceed expectations of big name brand impacts. The other items that I'll be using is a punch to align the puck's width and a 1/2-inch extension with an 18mm stubby wrench and an 18mm deep socket that I'll be using. And in the video here I have the wrong neck socket. It should be a 19mm socket. Next here I have a 3/8-inch ratchet with a 10mm socket that I'll be using to unbolt the ground wire on the firewall in the front. The jacks that we'll be using for this project are over here. The box I'll be lifting with this bottle jack that will be under the fender wall, and the cab will be lifted with the floor jack over here. The first item that we will be unbolting is the ground wire that is underneath the hood located on the firewall. I'll try to do a good job of showing you where it is located. And I anticipate this wire will be long enough. I know in most body lift kits they give you a 2-inch extension to lengthen the wire, but it looks like there's a fair bit of room. The first part of the truck that I will be lifting today is the cab. I did not in this video uninstall the front bumper, which I should have. It's actually fairly easy. It's only 6 bolts and 2 wires. When I lift the bumpers later on, you'll see that you do not need to uninstall the grille or the front plastic cover. And again, I highly recommend that you uninstall the front bumper. I will be lifting the driver's side first, taking out those bolts, and then loosening the bolts on the passenger side and leaving them installed so the cab cannot shift off the blocks. So you that just want to get started and don't have patience to watch the step-by-step video, I will do a walkthrough of all the bolts that need to be taken out of the cab and box.
And the bolt will be up top, the nuts down here. go over to the other side, behind the tire. And there's the other guy, number 2, number 3, and then you have number 4 right there. Get up. I'll show you the ones on the box. You have one right there. It's number 5. Number 6 right there. And that one there does not have a bolt. It's just a support. So we won't need any hardware for that. But I will be putting blocks there. And then we have 2 more yet, just behind the tire here. There's one straight up, and there's another one with holes straight up from over there as well. So just take the extension, go through here, take it off. And obviously the other ones on either side, they're placed exactly in the same spot, just on the opposite side. So I'm starting with the side that I'm going to get all the bolts out, which is the driver's side. So you can see this one has a nut in the bottom, and if you go to the very top here, then you can get at the head. So that way when you're taking it off, this will be spinning with, so you need to hold it there. And I'm going to take off this guy here next. This is my next bolt. There we go. Position myself for the next one. I guess I can maybe just do it straight this way. And obviously, I might need an extension for this one. It's up in there. There you go. She's down.
Have all the hardware that it has been unbolted from the truck. The first one is from the bumper, the second one, and then the third, last but not least, and then we have the fourth. The driver's side of the cab is completely unbolted now and loose. Here we are on the passenger side of the truck, going to go to the front where the first bolt will be located that we need to loosen. And here, as you can see, is the nut, and the bolt is up top. And if we move the rubber for the shroud, we can access the bolt with a stubby wrench. And I'm assuming one of the reasons why the bumper would be a good idea to take off is this would be a lot easier to get at and make your job much simpler.
Right. Here I am with the next bolt, which is this guy right here. So I'll take that guy out. Oh, there we go. So even that sucks for it's rolling away on me. And go to the next one. Right, here we have the last cab bolt. And they're down. Keep in mind, I'm just going to put these bolts back in, just thread them in, just so that we can tilt up that side.
Here we have the hardware that I have removed from the truck. This is close to the front bumper on the front. And the second item is right over here. The third and the fourth. There's no bolts because they are back in the cab, as I will be showing you here.
As you'll see, this bolt just threaded in by hand, just loosely. Same goes for the last cab bolt and the first cab bolt behind the wheel, just by hand. Alrighty then, now we're up to the next part, which is the actual lifting. So I've taken a block, cut it at 13 inches, a 4x4 block, placed my jack in the middle of the cab, and go down here, put the block into place, and we'll be lifting up on that mount where there's no bolt.
Here is the truck lifted up on the driver's side with the jack, and I will have to modify 2 of my nylon spacers, as I will show you in the bottom here. The spacer is 4 inches in diameter, and the cup that is bolted to the frame or mounted to the frame is 3 inches, so I will trim these down. And this is only on the driver's side that this needs to be done for 2 of them. And I'll go over to the front, and that one will need no modification. Just put it into place, and there's lots of room all around. I have now modified my nylon spacers, as I mentioned earlier before, that I needed to do, and I used the original spacer as a template for the outside diameter, and I have grinded it down. I did use my Milwaukee drill for that, which is one of the best drills that you'll buy. And again, as I mentioned before, I have worked in the maintenance department for several years, and we've had multiple kinds of drills, and not very many have lasted, and this is one of the ones that lasts the longest. And I used the original bolt that mounted the cab on and tightened it down onto the spacer. I then took that over to my bench grinder, and originally I started doing the job sideways with the grinder on and the drill turning in the opposite direction, and later found this was much more effective if I used this method and then turned. I will go over to the driver's side and show you the one that I have machined down and installed. As you can tell, it fits very well, and I will install the other one that's on top of the truck back there. And on the rear cab mount, I have used my square tubing, which is the 2x3x3 by quarter wall tube that I mounted here. I have now installed the hardware on the mount that is just behind the bumper. As you can tell, I am at the front of the vehicle. The driver's side of the vehicle is now complete. I have the spacers in place. As you can tell, the vehicle is a little bit tilted, and all the hardware is in place, and I just have them hand tight. And I have already taken out this bolt on the passenger side front. I had a little bit of difficulty taking it out because there's an air conditioner line that's in the way, and it makes it a challenge to take the bolt out, but nonetheless, eventually with some frustration it worked. I am now going to take out the passenger side bolts that I left in as guides before, and just taking a look at it, everything looks like it's going to work good. I now have the passenger side lifted, and all the hardware and spacers are in place, and I'll give you a front view of the truck, what it looks like. And obviously the bumper needs to be raised at some point, but that will be another video that I will be posting. And again, I used the jack and the block of wood as I did on the driver's side. And as you will see underneath, the spacers are all in place. The metal cups that were on the driver's side are not on this side. If you remember, the ones that were attached to the body support on the cab. They are not here. I did, for this side, not have a video as to where I put the block and the jack, and I put it on this mount as I did on the other side. Nice strong mount for that, just as a reminder. This is a view of the spacers and hardware and running bars are all in place and tightened down. And at some point I will have to raise the running boards, as they are a lot lower than they need to be because they're still in their stock location. And again, as I said, the front bumper will be lifted in a future video that I will be posting. And odds are, with the running boards, I will just cut the mounts and raise them to the proper location. Now that the cab is done, I will start with the box, and I'm going to loosen or take out the bolts on the driver's side completely and leave the passenger side bolts just hand tight loose for templates again.
Alright, I'm at the bottom of the truck, driver's side, first bolt in the box, and this one. I'm going to take those guys out. Now I'm going to take out the bolt that's in here, and for that I'm going to use the extension and the socket, and this back one is the same deal right through there.
The bolts on the driver's side are all completely out, and I now have to loosen the ones that are on the passenger side, and I'll start with the two that are behind the wheel. This will be the first one that I will loosen, and then the second one right here. Keep in mind, we will just be loosening them, not taking them out. The next set of bolts that we will be taking out are just in front of the rear passenger side wheel, and the one is behind the cab, this one here, and obviously the next one again we will loosen. The spacers for the box on the driver's side are now in place. As you can tell, the box is tilted. The bottle jack that I showed you earlier is just placed on top of the tire here, and on the inside of the fender wall there is a seam right here. You just lift up from there, and right here is my first block spacer, and the second and third right over there. Here is the finished product. All the spacers, hardware, steps are all complete and tightened down and in place. We'll do a walk around the truck just to see a complete view of the finished product. And as I mentioned, the step bars are too low and will have to be raised. The truck has a much better stance now, and the gap is obviously 2 inches between the tailgate and the bumper, which will be lifted. And keep an eye out for future videos that will be coming for that update. The front bumper gap again. There will be a video update. And for those of you that are curious about the ground wire that we had mounted earlier, I will show you. As you can tell, there's still a fair bit of room. I just rerouted it. Before it was on the back side of the hose, there is now on the front side, and it is still ample room there. And we'll keep an eye on it, as depending on how much the motor flexes when you go or drive, but I think it'll be pretty good. It looks like it'll be more than enough.
Like, what is up? It's weird, man. I'm like, Blue Smurf.